story. I am 32 years old. I grew up in Colombia and moved to the UK in 2016 and to Scotland specifically 3 years ago. I am a recent graduate in in a master's in art psychotherapy, and I'm officially registered as an art psychotherapist. It's a difficult question to answer because practically it's a space that is rented out to therapists who move through the ethos that we have put forward, and we offer affordable therapy, and that is to offer affordable therapy and available therapy. The idea is to get a bigger amount of art therapists, music therapists, and drama therapists within one building, and yeah, it's essentially a space for well-being and for community building as well. We will be not only renting out the space to the therapists that will be part of the collective, because we do want it to make it very much we want to make it very much owned by the therapist in a way, not owned in a financial way, but that they feel it's their own. We want their input. We want to grow with the therapist that we have in our service. But we would also be renting out to community art programs at a very low rent rate, so they can become stronger and eventually leave the nest, so to speak. So CIC versus charity is a very easy answer, and I am in awe of people who make charities happen, because they're hard, they're very difficult, and also just the model that we had in mind didn't make sense with the charity model. It made sense with the community interest company. We did make it limited by guarantee, and we've already asset locked it as well, just to make sure that it's in line with what we're trying to do. I've always been very moved towards just the thought process of community building and improvement. It's an idea I've had for several years now, not this specifically, but coming from Colombia, the thought process of offering opportunities for mental health that are free or accessible have always been have been on my mind for a while now, and I even thought at one point that I would go back in 10 years' time and provide that. But being in Edinburgh and having my experience during placement, it became very clear that all these people who are already trying to make so many positive changes are getting overwhelmed, heavily overwhelmed. And that, in addition to thinking, what does it look like when I graduate? What does it look like when a lot of people graduate? There's so many art, drama, and music. Well, specifically in our cohort, there were 40 art therapists graduating in a year. And I think it's around 20 or 30 for drama or music, maybe less, potentially less. And it didn't make sense to me that with an overwhelming waiting list, we still have so many people coming out of university and qualified, and somehow they can't find jobs, but it's needed. And it's because there's this whole thing about, rightfully so, about not creating a private practice as soon as you graduate, which makes sense because you need more experience. You need to be able to hold your own in your own space. And CATS essentially ethically bypasses that by providing a space where you can do something similar to private practice while still being surrounded by peers who you can discuss with, by a supervisor that can guide your work. You really ensure that even though the duty of care is under each therapist, there's a bigger organization there helping you manage administrative things that might otherwise be a bit overwhelming if you're on your own in your own home. Which is another layer of reasons why they ask us not to do private practice when we come out straight off the bat. It just wouldn't make sense as a recently graduated student to have people coming to your house when you haven't really had the years of experience in knowing how to like really assess the boundaries. And when someone comes into your home, there's more layers of boundaries that have to be put in place so that you can provide quality of care. And I think part of the reason why I went for a social enterprise as well instead of a business is through these 2 years of training. One thing that has become very ingrained in me is just this thought of us as humans as a collective, where if we improve each other and help each other grow, then we are going to be great, like much better together as a whole. And I don't know, it just felt the most aligned with who I am as a person. And one thing I've taken as well is just doing things that are coherent to the person that I am, and making it a business wasn't coherent to me. I'm going to go into each one. So thinking of the recent graduated therapists and therapists that are already qualified, it's a space to really have those conversations that you only really have in university, because when you're working professionally, you're in a setting where you won't have as many therapists that have a similar modality to yours. Even if it's art, drama, and music, we've got a very similar training. We take classes together. And there was something very beautiful about being able to share with each other, even though we were different modalities that we don't really get to touch on when we're working professionally outside of a space like this. I haven't really seen many. I have seen spaces, but not many spaces that are focused on art therapy, as like creative arts therapies as a whole. So there's that side of it, of course, like strengthening what we do for the community and how we do it, while also strengthening our growth in that by having so many people that have kind of the same base, but very diverse ways of thinking. And then on the community aspect of it, our aim is to be able to provide, as I mentioned, accessible and affordable therapy. We have a cap for everyone. No one can really ask for a higher fee. No one can ask for a higher fee than that, because that's our promise, essentially. And beyond that, when people self-refer, they're able to ask for their own rate with a no question asked approach. We won't be asking for any proof of income or anything like that. I feel like there's so much nuance in what you need at a certain time, and like basing that on your job and what you're making or not making, it feels like it makes it difficult for people to ask for help sometimes. So we just want to make it easier for people to approach someone to get mental health support and well-being support, and do so in a space where we essentially, in the beginning, have space for 90 clients a week. What else? Oh, well, and also in the community aspect, we see the struggle of community art programs in getting funding, and we think that because they already offer that benefit to the community to create, to remove themselves from that sense of isolation, that I think we were all a bit left with after official COVID times, because it's still ongoing, but official COVID times. And yeah, I think so many people have brilliant ideas, but they just don't have the funding to get them started. So providing a space where they can get that started at a low risk of cost is great, because they can get their name out there, they can grow their, the way that they do it, they can make it solid. And not only that, but they have the potential of liaising with therapists. And although they provide art as therapy and craft making as therapy, just having that conversation where we both talk to each other and see ways to make things grow, it's great. We might see something in a community art program that we hadn't thought of for our own clients as a way of expression, and vice versa. And some people might not be ready for therapy, but they might highly benefit from art and community aspects. So it's having that in the same building, I think, is going to really gap that access in a way. Our long-term goal is just that sense of community and growth, even within the therapeutic community, a sense of strengthening creative arts therapies in the mental health and well-being sector. And hopefully in 5 years' time, which is what I've assigned to be the year where we think about expanding, we would either get a different building and expand with that, or we would move the building to another place, although I'm leaning towards getting a different building just because of continuity and cohesiveness for the people that come for therapy. Hopefully it would help everyone, and that's that'd be great, but as of right now, the only the direct impact that we have would be through the free open therapy sessions for marginalized communities. Indirectly, I suppose, given that the therapists are sole traders, people who have difficulty accessing therapy due to financial reasons. We hope as well that our impact will extend to third sector and NHS. By creating some relief for the waiting list, because not everyone is in a waiting list because they can't afford to pay a little bit towards therapy. It's just that it's either waiting list or private, and usually private can be quite expensive. I am happy to say that a lot of art therapists and drama therapists and music therapists that I see within Edinburgh offer a sliding scale already, which is really nice, and it makes me happy to see that, but still just offering a space that's local and very evidently creative arts therapies, and with a choice between music, art, and drama, with a choice between therapists within that we're just trying to enable choice for the people who are self-referring. Before I even joined ESEN, I was receiving support from ESEN. Steve himself has been elemental in our growth. He's been very supportive. Even now, when I'm struggling with how to make sure something is sustainable, which is another thing I should probably get into, is the model that we have for CATS means that we wouldn't be continuously asking for funding, which in my view makes it beneficial for everyone else as well. Through the rent that we get from therapists and the rent that we get from the community art programs, essentially CATS can maintain itself, hopefully. Funding is more just to grow it and to grow the type of materials that we hold and to grow the therapist in the space through training, things like that. Currently, obviously, it has to do more with taking off, so rent. But no, Steve has been really helpful. Even now when I have questions about anything, there's no doubt in my mind that I can reach out through email, and he will respond with a time and day that he can give me the time to discuss it, and it's been really, really good. And not only that, but not gatekeeping other help as well, re-referring to other people that would provide just the same amount or even more support. We got in touch with ESEN through Business Gateway, and for both, I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised at the type of support that Scotland provides regarding social enterprises. I think it's beautiful. I don't think we would be able to do this without that. I've gone to a networking event for ESEN already as well that happened in July, and that was also very insightful. It meant that I could see where people were at with their social enterprises, how long it took for them to get them going, and it gave me a good grasp of what we were coming up against. So, in administrative levels, So that was helpful, and it was helpful to see the large amounts of people who are just working towards making, specifically Edinburgh, I suppose, in this setting, a much more community-focused space, which it's a relief. I think it's lacking in the world, so it's quite nice. Just guidance. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. I didn't picture this for myself as like a grand project or anything like that for like at least 10 years when I had, more experience. But I'm coming at it not as a therapist who's recently graduated, but as someone who's fortunately had a lot of opportunities to know about business and learn about that. Family members around me who are quite business savvy. So even though it's a social enterprise, having that business mentality towards it has meant that it's allowed me to think of it in a way that won't rely on funding eventually. But guidance in that I'm doing it the right way. We have an accountant now, so their guidance in knowing that I'm not like assigning money in the wrong direction. And just the continued conversations. I hope I don't get into like this pigeonhole of what CATS is supposed to be. That's something that we were told from the very beginning, be flexible. And that has really helped because it's meant that it's grown, it's expanded. It's not changed, but it's expanded because of that flexibility. But I think for anything in life, like continued conversations means that you can do a better job if you have input from people outside of it who are viewing it from the outside, as well as people who are experiencing it from within. Then that's the only way to make something truly worth what the community needs, because otherwise you're just like, oh, what's happening here? And this is all we need to know. It's working, the system's working, but could it be better? And yeah, so the networking events are great for that. And money. What am I excited about is it being established, it running smoothly, hopefully. Within a year, again, as mentioned, we're going to be thinking about bringing in new directors, bringing in, fortunately, we've had a set of funding being allocated to us. That means that we can take a little bit of time to really consider the directors that we would bring into the service. So it means that within a year's time, what I'm excited about is it being settled and going, because right now it's just a trigger point. So yeah, in a year's time, it having more opportunities for growth and for ideas, instead of having one open free group a week, maybe having more. Having a clear idea of the community art programs that would be taking space in CATS, seeing the outcome of our impact. We're going to set up a survey to just kind of measure that. So next year would be the other one, and that will be very interesting for many reasons. But to be absolutely frank, just seeing it happen and just seeing it take place and see the support that it can actually give, because it's very easy to think that something's going to function in a specific way in your head, but until it's on the floor and running, you don't really know. So I'm excited to see. Nervous, more than excited, I would say. The nature, 100%. I like the city vibe while still maintaining kind of like a not city vibe. Also, I really enjoy that people talk to each other in the street. Not all the time. You don't love it when someone approaches you in the middle of the night, but but there's I can feel there's a sense of community. It sounds so silly, but things like Meadow Share on Facebook, freebies in Leaf in Facebook, and then seeing so many enterprises, so many social enterprises as well within, you have Dig In and Scran Academy, for example. It just feels like there's a real sense of community that's budding, and that could really, not budding, that it's there, but I still feel like, obviously, like with everywhere in the world, especially in the type of society that we live in general, in the world, there's a disconnect. But I feel like here you already have kind of the basis of making it a very wholesome, community-based place. For myself as a person, the mountains, like I love, well, the mountains, I say mountains, Arthur's Seat. It's a mountain to me. We don't have that in Colombia. Well, we do have it in Colombia. We have the Andes. We don't have it in my city, which is by the coast. But just waking up in the morning and like seeing Arthur's Seat is amazing. Having so many parks around, the green space. One thing that we want for cats is that eventually it becomes very synonymous with ecotherapy as well. Where people can choose to go outside, have their therapy outside and things like that. Obviously, that's very far in the future when it's more established and it can provide people the opportunity to have transport allocated to them so that they can make it there, because we're thinking Pentlands maybe, so it's a bit more outside. The art-based community, like you have things like set studios who hold like really lovely community sessions that I think are wonderful. Then there's also, of course, Reconfigure at Summerhole. Summerhole in general, I think, is fantastic. You can have a city that's beautiful and have nature, but if you don't have the community, you don't feel like you belong. And me as a person who's a foreigner, essentially, having spaces like Reconfigured, Life Drawing in Summerhole, and the shows in set studios meant that I could really build on that community that I felt like I could identify with. It made me feel very much at home, like it feels like home. And I don't think that's an easy thing to say when you don't live there, like you haven't lived there for a long time. And given that I've only been here for 3 years, to me that's like shockingly fast to feel like settled in a space like this. Arts Therapies Space is a nesting ground for therapists to grow, for community art programs to grow, while also providing accessible healing for our local community, for now, local.